Evening, everyone. It is 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7. Brian Wilson and the gang all coming to you live from Hot Springs in Murfreesboro for our pre-debate show. Matt Murphy is leading the crowd in a cheer now. Did you ever think about becoming a cheerleader? Because, I think you have that as a natural gift.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate that.
Yeah, maybe, can you do backflips? That's the other thing.
No backflips, and I can lift no one.
So it's Brian Wilson, Matt Murphy, we got Chris Hand, and Grandpa Dan Mandis is in the room. How's it going, Grandpa?
Amazing last 4 days. I'm so glad to be here, but I was so glad to be in Louisville to be able to watch that take place. Unbelievable, and I'm just excited as can be.
And mother and child doing well.
Everybody's good.
Well, congratulations. I know you're very happy, and I know you're probably running off not a lot of sleep.
I'm running off of just excitement for this debate tonight and really looking forward to seeing J.D. Vance kick the crap out of Tim Walz.
Well, there you go. There we go. Got to be an interesting debate. Let's go around the table. First of all, before we get there's a couple of stories out there that may actually percolate during tonight's debate. One of them is real questions about how many times Tim Walz went to China. He says
China.
Dozens. He says he did it 30 times. And now they're saying, well, maybe 15. And then there's another story that was broken by, of all sources, Minnesota Public Radio, raising questions about Tim Walz and whether he was in China. He has said time and time again in past interviews that he was in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square riots, which were very 1989, very big story. But apparently there are real questions about whether he was in China at that time. I don't know how you misremember a thing like that.
Well, and as recently as 2019, he said this, Brian.
Yeah.
I mean, not so long ago, while he was a congressman and even a Minnesota governor, he said that he was in China during the Tiananmen Square event. And Nebraska newspapers would beg to differ that he was in that
They have pictures of him,
because they have pictures of him in Nebraska at the time that he claims that he was in China. But as far as how many times he's been there goes, I don't know about you guys, but you know what? I might want to visit China just for the cultural aspect of China once. But I feel like if you get into double digits, you're doing something more than just touring the scenery. Maybe you are absorbing the culture in a political way.
I've been to China twice. Once was on an adoption trip, and one was to take my daughter back to the place of her birth. And so 2 trips. I can't imagine wanting to go again. But Tim Walz went, at least they say now, 15 times.
Why would he lie all the way up to this point only to be found out, and now he's like, well, let me recount. I mean, he fits right in with Joe Biden and his plethora of lies and cringe on Pierre as well. This is either an administration, now that filters down to Tim Walz. I mean, and of all the things to lie about, why would you lie about that?
But at a certain point with the lies of Tim Walz, are we going to have enough time during this debate for them to catalog every lie that we've busted him on? From the IVF to the stolen valor to the China visits, It goes on
DUI,
and on and
don't
on.
forget about the DUI.
Oh, the DUI, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Is there going to be enough time?
Well, and it says a lot about the man's character that, like, if I had been to China 15 times and I came back and I was a politician in the United States of America, I would lie down. Tim Walz lied up, which tells you a lot about what Tim Walz thinks about China and the way that they do their business in the communist country. He lied up. Oh, no, I've been more than 15. I've been 30 times. I love China. That's just a weird lie.
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense at all.
No, we're the ones that are weird, Matt.
Oh, that's
according to Tim Walz, we're the ones that are weird.
We're the weirdos.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Tampons in the boys' room.
Yes,
That's
there's
another
that too.
one.
That's another one.
So do you think
Keep remembering the lies.
I'm just going to catalog them as we go on.
Do you think that will come up tonight in the debate? Do you think at any point J.D. Vance will take the opportunity to sort of turn a question on him about that?
I think you have to. I mean, you saw popular leftist media outlets like the Breakfast Club in New York cataloging Kamala wanting to pay transgender surgeries for migrants and for inmates, and how the left was like, whoa, what? I think you have to bring up the tampons in the boys' room because it kind of breaks the conditioning a bit.
So I must have missed something while I was gone. So you're telling me the Breakfast Club was cataloging all of Kamala's oddities?
So they brought up the fact that Trump ran an ad during college football that she wants to give taxpayer-funded surgeries, gender reassignment surgeries, to inmates and migrants And Charlemagne said, I don't want my tax dollars going to that.
Really? Love it.
When you lose Charlemagne.
When you lose Charlemagne, you lose the left. These are the things, though, that are they break the narrative. They break the conditioning for these leftists.
See, I think that's why, and we've all been talking about how there's got to be, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about, and you guys were too, about the inside polling. There's something going on within the party and within the campaign of Harris. She is losing the left. And we saw so why does she want to do another debate with Donald Trump? Why is she suddenly going down to the scene of her crime, the southern border? And then it suddenly makes sense. She is seeing internal polling that shows that she is losing, and I think that's what's going on.
Two states she can't afford to lose. One of them is apparently Michigan. The person running for the Senate, the Democrat running for the Senate in the state of Michigan, has said that her internal polling shows that Kamala Harris is underwater in Michigan.
Well,
a lot of polls now showing, real strength in some of these battleground states, like Minnesota and Wisconsin. Not Minnesota, but Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. If the poll that I saw the other day from Atlas International, they're the most accurate pollster in the last election. If that is true, it says that Kamala Harris will lose in a landslide. That Donald Trump would have somewhere in the neighborhood of 290 electoral college votes if those polls are indeed accurate. And there's something going on, Dan, you're right. There for a while, her numbers came up. It was concerning. If you twisted my arm 2 weeks ago and asked me who's going to win this thing, I really honestly couldn't tell you. It was that close. But now there has been a move back toward Donald Trump, and the poll numbers all seem to, and the not only the poll numbers, but the anecdotal evidence is something is happening in these battleground states.
And I don't think you need Michigan. I think if you score Georgia as a victory, and I believe Georgia will be a victory for Donald Trump, and I do believe that the hurricane, the disastrous response on the part of the federal government in Georgia and in North Carolina will impact how people feel about this administration, whether or not they're going to go to the polls and pull the trigger for an administration that seems to have abandoned that part of the world in their time of need. I think you need Pennsylvania. I mean, that's just my take on it. If you get Pennsylvania, you can score the victory for Donald Trump without needing the state of Michigan, although Michigan would be an absolute bonus.
I think Michigan's almost a slam dunk. When you have the mayor of Hamtramck, who's a Democrat, a Muslim, in the only Muslim majority city coming out and endorsing Donald Trump, that's going to cause a reckoning in that community. This is the same guy that started the Abandon Biden movement, the Abandon Harris movement, and he's coming out for Donald Trump. But I don't think we need to see the internal polling. We've seen the public polling. We've seen what's going on with the union workers. We see what's going on with the youth vote. We see what's happening with Latinos. The new Univision poll just came out, has Trump up by 17 points with Latino voters. It's insane.
We could do an unscientific poll right here tonight at our debate watch party. We've got the vice presidential debate watch party going on. A lot of people are already gathering. Let's just by applause. Who's for Harris and Walz?
Very quiet.
And
very quiet.
And what about Donald Trump and J.D. Vance?
I think that's a completely scientific poll.
I think she might have lost Tennessee, guys. Just on a hunch.
Well, it is interesting, though. I do think something is up. I mean, it just seems like there has been a shift in the last few days. Do we have that soundbite, Chris Weber? Do we have that soundbite of Matt Towery from earlier? I'd love to play that.
That's great audio.
Yeah,
it's great stuff.
He's come across some stuff as well. Chris, I'm sorry, I can't see you. Do you have it?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's run it then. Here's Matt Towery talking about the shift that he's seen in recent days.
I've looked at polling that I've been privy to, and I'll probably be public in the next few days. Trump is trending up in almost every single battleground state, almost every one. And when you ask the question, how are your neighbors going to vote? You have very shy Trump voters sometimes. Those numbers explode. And I've not seen this in ages. And you know me, I'm usually Mr. Doom and Gloom for the Republicans and Trump. But right now, I am seeing a true shift in public sentiment, not just in Michigan and Pennsylvania. I'm seeing it in Nevada, as a matter of fact. There's been a turnaround there. The only problem child right now is Georgia, and that's because the Republicans, you have two groups. groups. Traditionalist Republicans who go way back, they're not feeling the groove with Trump right now. It's the more newcome Republicans and those who live in the exurbs and down in those areas that were hit by this storm. So this is an amazing, I'm seeing a shift. And I'll tell you, these prognosticators with these models that they have that have been wrong, by the way, each presidential election, they had this thing spreading wide open for Harris. They better rethink their models because this thing is closing, and is closing with Trump having momentum, at least with the 30-something days we have left.
Yeah, I mean, it's the right time to have momentum in your direction. That's for sure.
And here's my question. So, and I haven't heard what your opinion is on this, but we've had stories out that say that the polling is traditionally not in favor of Donald Trump, and then the election actually happens, and you see that he was underpolled. Where do you stand on the polling? Is Trump underestimated in the polling, according to?
I do believe so. The thing that has happened lately is that he's brought the trend has been back toward Trump in the battleground polls, but it takes a while when you're averaging them out for that to show up, but it is showing up. I saw a statistic the other day that said that, yes, it's true that in the general election number, Kamala Harris leads on average by 2 points, but Trump is 4 points ahead of where he was in the general election number in the last election cycle. So, yeah, there's something going on out there. And anecdotally, with all the talk about Hispanics now moving back to Trump and voters of color moving back, and the working people, having no doubt about who they're going to be supporting, something feels like it's happening, and it's a good trend.
So I think what we should do then is ask everybody, what do you think is happening? I mean, I know what I think. I want to know what Murphy and Brian and Chris thinks about, what is happening.
I'll be honest with you. I think the media is running out of gas propping up Harris. I think that's what we're seeing. I don't know if opinion on the ground has changed so much, or the media is just really in the home stretch here, and they're losing it. They can't keep it up any longer.
Here's what I think. Donald Trump has done one thing in American politics that I don't think gets talked about enough, and that is he has brought a sense of authenticity to the process. In other words, you cannot be a plastic politician any longer and get away with it when you are fighting against authenticity. If there's anything Donald Trump is, for all of his faults and for all of the reasons why the left hates him so much, he is his authentic self. Kamala Harris can't decide what she is.
But Matt, she grew up in the middle class.
That's true. She is middle class.
She is
she worked at McDonald's. She was hard at work on the fry
Everybody
station.
took care of their lawns.
I think there are two things going on here. Number one, she's wearing thin as a candidate, and I think Donald Trump is becoming a better candidate.
Well, I agree.
His messaging is a lot better than it was.
Well, and on the primary issues that voters are concerned with, she can't figure out where she is. She tries to play both ends against the middle when it comes to immigration, both ends against the middle when it comes to inflation and the economy, both ends against the middle when it comes to foreign policy. These are the issues that matter to the American people.
All right, we'll be back with more in just a moment. Right now, 20 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes. This is Shoot 270, located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down and check us out. I know you're going to love the shooting range, and you're going to love the retail store. See you there.
It is 25 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7. It's Brian Wilson. We have Matt Murphy. We have Dan Mandis. We have Chris Hand, all in the joining us here for the pre-debate show as we are at Murfreesboro, Hop Springs. Thanks to the folks at Glock Store and Four Seasons Garage Doors. We appreciate your sponsorship of this event. And I noticed, by the way, a couple of things. I looked on the monitor. Fox News is hitting hard this question about Tim Walz and Tiananmen Square, saying that he was in China when that happened, when clearly there are a lot of evidence that he wasn't. Why would you misremember such a thing? So it's a question about his veracity, I think, more than anything else. There's all kinds of questions about China. But I'm wondering, with the developments of the last couple of days, I mean, we got the hurricane and the slow response by the Biden administration. We got the dock workers' strike, which is the first time that's happened since 1977. The administration not willing to get involved in that because they want the vote of union voters. And then the third thing, of course, is what happened today in the Mideast with Iran firing missiles, 200 ballistic missiles into Israel. How many of these things will come to play as factors in the coming election? Matt Murphy.
Well, first and foremost, I think the dock workers story, I mean, obviously all three of those stories that you laid out are incredibly important, but the dock workers story is getting underreported by the mainstream media because it's such an absolute embarrassment on the part of the Biden administration. Gina Raimondo, who is the Commerce Secretary, was on CNBC 3 days ago and said, well, she really didn't have anything to do with this. This is the Commerce Secretary of the United States of America.
Unbelievable.
And she said, well, you'll have to talk to the Transportation Secretary about it. Well, the Transportation Secretary has been out of pocket for the last 4 days preparing Tim Walz for the debate. He was acting as J.D. Vance in debate prep, so he hasn't had anything to do with this either. We have $5 billion a day potential in losses because 45,000 dock workers haven't gotten a resolution to the strike, and they're prepared to strike for the rest of the year, they say, if necessary, if they don't come to a resolution satisfactory to them. It's a huge deal, and you cannot lie your way out of the grocery store, and this is going to cause prices to go up. It's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been coming for quite some time, obviously, and so for Gina Raimondo not to know what the heck's going on goes right to the heart of the Biden administration, which is who the hell is running the country?
Yeah.
I mean, what was going on in the last cabinet meeting? Did I see that Joe Biden was running one of the last cabinet meetings?
She was sitting at the head of
she was at the head of the table.
So that begs the question, who is running the country? Is it Joe Biden? Because clearly they missed something in the last cabinet meeting.
Well, it ain't Joe, and according to recent reports, and these are left-of-center organizations doing this reporting, Joe is a little bit miffed about the way that they've handled him leaving the race and Kamala Harris ascending to the main stage and to the podium. He's a little upset when she, during the presidential debate, said, well, I'm not Joe Biden, when queried by Donald Trump himself about, well, you're a part of the Biden administration. Well, I'm not Joe Biden. Reportedly, Joe did not take very well to that. And so
I can understand why.
Well, I mean, right. I mean, Joe Biden feels like he's been cast aside by the Democrats. I don't know who Joe Biden thinks he's been dealing with, but Democrats are absolute political blood sharks, and they will use you until they don't need you. They throw you away when they don't need you, and they've done that with Joe.
And that's disloyal to her because, I mean, if it weren't for Joe Biden immediately saying, I endorse Kamala Harris, that we might have well had another candidate that emerged in the convention. So Joe Biden stood by her, and then she doesn't stand by him at all. Well, listen, I mean, he is yesterday's news. But, I mean, he's still in charge of this administration, an administration that seems to be failing in its response in North Carolina and in all of these states that were hit by the floodwaters.
Well, hasn't it become obvious that the same people that were making decisions on behalf of the President of the United States of America have now shifted to Kamala Harris's campaign? So their focus is on getting her elected instead of doing the job of the presidency, and sadly, he can't function on his own.
And I really wonder just how weak he is if he's up to the task of being a wartime president, because we're about to get in a war.
It frightens the heck out of me, the prospect that we don't have backroom diplomacy going on. You know better than anybody at this table, Brian, the manner in which those types of things are initiated. You don't hear about them on the news necessarily. You don't necessarily talk about them on talk radio. But those types of conversations are what keeps American boots off the ground in foreign conflicts that we have no business being in. And sadly, Joe apparently hasn't bothered to have those sorts of conversations.
In 2020, we were signing the Abraham Accords, and in 2024, we have bombs going off all over the Middle
Amen,
East.
brother.
Great point. It's a great point.
I mean, it's a frightening time to be an ally of Israel, in the sense that, sadly, Israel is having to do all of this on their own, and Iran is emboldened by the fact that, despite what Karine Jean-Pierre said today, she lied from the podium of the White House today when she said that, we've not lifted any restrictions on Iran during our presidency. We've not done that. If anything, we've strengthened restrictions. It is a bogus, it's an empirically false statement.
They might want to check the New York Times article from about 8-9 months ago, where they laid out all of the things that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did to ignore Iran as they were selling all of that oil to China. They're talking about $2.8 billion or so that Iran should not have received, and we all know what Iran is doing with that money. They're bombing Israel. And so that, for me, that's one of the questions I want to see them ask Tim Walz tonight is, okay, so the Biden administration and Kamala Harris, your running mate, ignored the sanctions, lifted the sanctions, were not tough on Iran like Donald Trump was. And so what does that mean for the war against Israel?
We'll pick up this conversation after the news at 6:30 on SuperTalk 99.7.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes. This is Shoot 270, located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down and check us out. I know you're going to love the shooting range, and you're going to love the retail store. See you there.
It is 40 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7. Brian Wilson, Chris Hand, Dan Bandis, Matt Murphy. We're all here at Hop Springs and Murfreesboro for the big debate.
Big hype at Hop Springs.
Come on now. Get going.
You could say that things are hopping at Hop Springs if you were so inclined. And we're glad. Over on the other end of the bar, we have the folks from News Nation, Fox Nation. I'm sorry, Fox Nation setting up. I'm sorry.
Who was that again?
I said Fox Nation.
Fox Nation.
Fox Nation.
Fox Nation.
Yeah. It doesn't come easily off my tongue after all these years. But no, they're going to be down the other end doing some pre-debate coverage, and definitely going to be something to watch there. I think, Matt, you're hanging around afterwards to talk to some of the folks.
I think I'm talking to Pete. I think we can say this now. I believe that we're allowed to say this now. But Pete, I mean, you talk to Pete Hegseth every week.
Yeah, he comes on. He'll be on tomorrow if he's available.
And I think Pete's going to be a part of the Fox Nation broadcast, and he's going to be running around after the broadcast talking to folks, and I'm going to be one of the folks that he talks to. So that should be a lot of fun.
There you go. Well, listen, we're talking about the big debate tonight. Do vice presidential debates matter? It's sort of I saw a poll on this, and 95% of people said it wouldn't change their mind. But I think it does matter because we need to know if either of these guys are up to the task of stepping in should something happen.
I mean, I'll start off and say this. In normal circumstances, I do not believe that vice presidential debates matter, that much. But this is not a normal circumstance. The first debate that we saw, which was unusually early and on purpose in June, right here, we watched it together at Hop Springs, Donald Trump trounced Joe Biden with such efficiency, Joe Biden left the race. And you have a new candidate who's only debated him once. It seems that that's the only time they're going to debate. So I do think if this is the last time that they are seen on a national stage, the camps are seen, that it does matter. And I would add this one other thought, of the moments in presidential debate history that I can think of, there are a few that come to mind, and one of them is a vice presidential debate.
Yeah.
I mean, Senator
John Kennedy was a friend of mine, and you're no John Kennedy.
I mean, so
right?
if those types of moments, I think, are what we remember more than anything.
I think personally, I think this does matter because if they can get Tim Walz talking about how he lied about the trips to China, then you tie that to the decision-making of Kamala Harris. So to me, J.D. Vance's job is to pin Tim Walz to the wall, get him to admit that he lied, admit that he obfuscated the truth, whatever it is, and that proves that Kamala Harris is terrible at decision-making.
That's a great point because they say the first important decision that a candidate makes that sort of lays out for you their vision and their ability to lead is who they choose as their running mate. And so if this guy turns out to be a disaster, then it raises questions about her judgment.
And I think it's important to point out that her first decision was to not pick Josh Shapiro because he was too Jewish. And I also think that we know so little about what their plans are that this is kind of important. I think that if Walz goes out there and he tries to lay out a vision better than Kamala Harris did and fails, it could actually hurt them. I don't think it's going to hurt the Trump campaign one way or another, but I think that this could hurt the Harris-Walz campaign.
I think that J.D. Vance is able to fact-check Tim Walz, and they can engage more. I think Vance is going to absolutely wipe the floor with Tim Walz because Tim Walz, I believe that Scott Jennings was right. He is a buffoon.
Yeah.
And so J.D. Vance is going to very concisely get Tim Walz to admit that Kamala Harris, her policies and her vision has completely changed from just a few years ago.
And Tim Walz, he's a caricature of what J.D. Vance really is, a Midwestern, down-to-earth American guy who shares a story that millions of Americans share. He's relatable. They're trying to make Tim Walz that guy, but he still has to answer about the tampons in the boys' room in middle school.
Yeah, and the thing about J.D. Vance that I really like is of all of the candidates, Kamala Harris, even Donald Trump, and you look at J.D. Vance, he's the best communicator of the bunch.
Absolutely.
Very strong. He can, when he's on his game, and I expect he'll be on his game tonight, he can eviscerate Tim Walz.
Back to the original question, and I do think Chris has a good point. Your initial decision-making as a candidate for president of the United States involves your running mate. And instead of picking the obvious choice, frankly, I'm glad that Kamala Harris was not able to pick the choice that everyone told her that she should select because he was Jewish.
100%.
He's the governor of Pennsylvania. It would have put Pennsylvania so close to the Democrat category that we would be having a very different discussion tonight. Instead, she could not pull the trigger because of the anti-Israel sentiment amongst the Democrat Party. She selects a governor of a state that they are going to win handily. The only state that Ronald Reagan, for goodness sake, in 1984 lost was Minnesota. And it goes to her decision-making, and he has not delivered what he was supposed to deliver. Tim Walz was supposed to be on the stump delivering white males to the Democrats, and he has failed miserably, so much so that they don't have him out.
And he's failed because he's an absolute beta. He is,
no question.
He is a beta. Listen, J.D. Vance is going to mop the floor with him, but I think you're right. Had they chosen Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania is a completely different different conversation. Completely different.
I still think that Josh Shapiro wanted nothing to do with this crap show. Like,
you might be right. You might be right, Dan.
I think he went to the powers that be and said, I want nothing to do with Kamala Harris. The woman is a train wreck. The campaign is going to be a train wreck. And he wanted to save his own political career by staying as far away from Kamala Harris as he possibly could.
See, I think it's the Jewish thing, and I think it's trying to, satiate the rabid left base, which is funny because Trump is so pro-Israel, and now he's getting endorsements from Muslim Michigan mayors because he's authentic.
Because
he's going to bring peace.
It wasn't just that Josh Shapiro was Jewish. It's that Josh Shapiro has a very, very different position on the Israeli-Gaza-Hamas conflict than does Kamala Harris and than do so many of these college students that are out on campus. So you can't have it both ways. You can't encourage these 20-year-old skulls of mush to come vote for you and pick a guy that is, quote-unquote, in their minds, pro-genocide.
That absolutely correct. She went with the candidate she was comfortable with on that issue, and it probably is going to really end up hurting her in the end, because especially with what's going on in the news today.
Don't forget, she also didn't want someone that would overshadow her, and Josh Shapiro would.
And you know where she learned that? Joe Biden.
It's like they're consistently stepping down in terms of intelligence to make sure that no one outshines their lack of intelligence.
Yeah.
All right, so how quickly do you think they'll get to the whole Haitians are eating cats and dogs?
Well, they'll try.
That's going to be almost immediately.
I love it. I love it.
I hope that J.D. Vance has a one-liner to sort of end that conversation.
I would think he will.
I would think he's probably got something in his back pocket on that.
Well, I mean, and you simply pivot to the greater point that, I mean, and you brought this statistic to the table, at least it was the first time that I heard it, Brian Wilson, and that was that we have imported almost
4.
I mean, and I called it almost 5 because I feel like 5 is a nice round number, but 4% of the Haitian population has been flown into the United States of America during the Harris-Biden administration.
Everybody thinks the whole thing at the border has calmed down. It hasn't calmed down at all. They're simply not coming through the border. They're flying in on airplanes.
And giving them temporary visas to work.
And while they're flying the Haitians in, they're warning Americans don't travel to Haiti. It's far too dangerous.
Well, having been to Haiti a couple of times, I can tell you I don't want to go there. It wouldn't be on
Haiti
my
or
spot
China? Which would you prefer?
Neither one, quite frankly.
What do you believe? I mean, Dan, it's an interesting point that you bring up. What do you believe the first subject matter is? I feel like it has to be foreign policy and the events happening in the Middle East today.
Well, if you look at, if you're sitting there and you're Nora O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan, look, if you look at CBS's slant on the news, it's been pointed out that I think it's 64% of the coverage of Kamala Harris has been positive, and 89% of the coverage of Donald Trump has been negative. You got to wonder, where their loyalties lie and where their bias lies. I think they'll try to come after him on abortion.
Sure.
I think if I were guessing, those two will come at J.D. Vance on a woman's right and abortion.
I mean, that's a legit issue, though. But for me, when you look at these debates, number one, what will be the first question? It should be Israel. It should be Iran and all the
given the news of the day.
Given the news of the day.
Yeah, that's probably right.
I think it'll be interesting to see what they don't ask.
See, I don't think they're going to spend too much time on abortion because of the radical policies in place in Minnesota. I think that's a losing issue for them.
Well, from a debate perspective, I'd like to get into what J.D. Vance can do that his boss I won't say can't do, but chooses not to do. Donald Trump has his own style. I think J.D. Vance can pivot back to ask the questions of Tim Walz that the moderators refuse to ask.
We got to take a break. 50 minutes now past the hour.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes. This is Shoot 270, located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down and check us out. I know you're going to love the shooting range, and you're going to love the retail store. See you there.
Okay. It's 57 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. We had another exciting bonus hour to come here on Super Talk 99.7 as we are at Hop Springs in Murfreesboro. Let's hear it out there, Murfreesboro.
Come on. Who's jazzed up for this debate tonight, huh?
The Burrow shows out.
Yeah, a good crowd here tonight. And again, the folks on the other end are Fox Nation. They're going to be doing a little broadcasting here. Well, we have just a couple of minutes before we have to get a hard break out to do the news. But any thoughts as we wrap up this hour about, will there be a surprise in this debate, or is it all fairly predictable?
I mean, well, by definition, right, a surprise is something that you don't see coming. So I think if there are any surprises, I don't know that we would see it coming. But I think the subject matters.
You make a good point.
Right? I think the subject matters are relatively predictable in as much as, the battle lines have been drawn. Donald Trump and his team, and J.D. Vance included, obviously, they have established where they are on the economy. They are the outsiders looking in. They want to bring us back to where we were prior to COVID-19 in 2019 into 2020. And you've got the Harris-Walz ticket that are trying to pretend like they don't currently own 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's my biggest takeaway is you need to make them own the last 3.5 years.
They want to turn the page.
Turn the
page.
She grew up in the middle class.
She worked at McDonald's. That's what I heard.
Well, that's what they say.
You can't prove she didn't.
Do you know what I would love? I would love J.D. Vance to ask Kamala Harris how they make the fries in McDonald's. Like, how long does the fryer go into the oil? That's what I want to know. There's got to be a way to prove that she's lying about that.
Something oddly specific.
Or
Yes.
name your manager.
Right? Oh, that's a great point. Name your manager.
Name one person you worked with.
He should do what Vivek did to Nikki Haley in that debate. Name a province in Ukraine, but name somebody you worked with at McDonald's.
Just one person.
Just one person.
And just corroborate you were there.
Actually, how is it no one who worked with her at McDonald's has come out and said, we worked with Kamala?
You would think that the leftist media would find some coworker to run a puff piece on how she was such a great worker and always covered those extra shifts and yada, yada, yada.
All right. Well, listen, we have another hour to come here on Super Talk 99.7. You are listening to the big debate party down at Hop Springs in Murfreesboro. Hey, it's not too late to come on down and join us. So hang around, everybody. We got one more hour before the debate begins, and a lot more fun and frivolity here at Hop Springs. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes.
ABC News. I'm Daria Albinger. We
This is Shoot 270 located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down
tickets. Ohio
and
Senator
check us out. I
J.D.
know
Vance
you're going to
and
love the
Minnesota
shooting range,
Governor Tim
and you're
Walz
going to love the
meet
retail
tonight
store.
in New York in the
See you
CBS News vice presidential debate. The Iranian rocket attack could be a main topic. California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell says Walz's message will line up with the vice president's.
He's going to make sure tonight that the country knows and the world knows that we're going to stand with Israel and we're going to defend Israel against Iran's escalating aggression in the region.
RNC Chair Michael Whatley says we could expect this from Vance.
What he's going to do tonight is focus on issues that really, truly matter to American voters. Are we going to have a strong southern border? Are we going to have a strong economy? And are we going to be able to, strong enough to defend ourselves and our allies around the world in the face of all of the different challenges that we have right now?
It is likely to be the last time the campaigns will get to argue their cases before the election. North Carolina election officials say they will do all they can to ensure voters can cast their ballots, even after the devastation caused by Hurricane Helene. The IDF striking Hezbollah targets in Beirut hours after Iran's attack to down Israel.
The White House says the U.S. military coordinated closely with Israeli defense forces to help defend Israel against this attack by Iran. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
U.S. naval destroyers joined Israeli air defense units in firing interceptors to shoot down inbound missiles.
Sullivan said the U.S. did not know of damage to aircraft or strategic military assets in Israel and called Iran's attack, quote, defeated and ineffective. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
California lawmakers approved a bill backed by Governor Newsom to prevent gas prices from spiking, especially in late summer when demand goes up. You're listening to ABC News.
SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Tonight is Debate Watch Party number 3.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In Murfreesboro. Hop Springs is the location, and the crowd has thickened. Everybody's got their seats ready to go.
It's a very thickened crowd.
It's a thickened crowd.
Yay.
Sure, it's getting late in the evening. Hello, everybody. Welcome, everybody listening on the radio. If you're not here yet, come on out. There's a big crowd waiting for you. My name is Matt Murphy, and I'm pleased to be joined alongside Brian Wilson, Chris Hand, and Dan Mandis, who is pressing the flesh. And, I don't know, kissing babies. Grandpa.
I think he's showing off pictures of that baby is what he's doing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've got about another 53 minutes or so until we make way for the big debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, the only vice presidential debate of this session, and expected to be the last debate amongst the campaigns before Election Day on November 5th. We are joined by hundreds, if not thousands, of SuperTalk 99.7 WTN listeners, and we appreciate each of you being able to come out and join us for this Debate Watch Party. We are also joined by Fox Nation. They'll be cranking up in about 30 minutes or so, getting ready for their digital broadcast, and they'll be watching the debate and then getting some reaction from the crowd.
I just went to the green room. I didn't know they were back there.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Did
Did
you
they have
okay?
a green room? I don't.
Oh,
we didn't
yeah,
get
they're
a
right
green
back.
room.
They're right back there.
Really?
Well, hey, Dan, why don't you take your microphone and go back there and see what's going
they
on?
have chicken nuggets.
What?
Yep.
I noticed before they closed the door that there were Coca-Colas back there.
Yeah.
That's nice. Did you say hello to everybody?
No, they were busy in a conversation. You know, the TV people have no time for the radio.
So how would it? what would the response be if I walked back there with my microphone and just started like sticking microphones at people?
You should. You should.
Go do it. See what happens.
Do it.
Come on, Dan.
Come on, Dan. You got guts.
Chris,
You got moxie.
we're gonna delegate that. I have no moxie.
I don't believe
Go ahead,
you.
Chris.
Well, they're not all there yet, but they will be soon.
You know what? Maybe by the end of the show, one of us. Brian, you're a lot bigger than me. Why don't you do it?
Yeah, no, I don't care to do that.
All right, there you go.
Moving
right along.
But I wouldn't
great
mind getting
part
some
about
of those
that-
chicken nuggets. They look pretty good.
Well, you're big enough to grab a handful of chicken
I should have
nuggets and
said,
get out of the
hey,
room.
you're not going to eat all these.
Really?
No.
Can we talk
And they
about
won't.
this?
They're TV people.
Can we talk about you not sharing the steak at Kid Rock's place? We can talk about that if you want to talk about sharing food. I am still not over that.
Whoa. That predates, I think that predates Hand and Matt Murphy.
It actually does.
That's a long time ago.
It's a long, bitter memory for him.
Okay, Brian
All right,
had like this 75-ounce steak at
It was
Kid
a
Rock's
tomahawk
place.
steak.
Okay, sure.
And I
It's like a
literally
$120 steak.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And I asked Brian. They only brought him a steak, and apparently I was chopped liver. And so
Oh, you got chopped liver?
I couldn't even get chopped liver.
Congratulations.
And so I asked Brian, "Hey, can you just cut off a little?" No, he wouldn't cut off a little piece.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it either. And I like you a lot.
There are two types of people in the world, Mandis. I think you just learned what type Brian will. There's the type of person that says, sure, you can have some food. And then and I'm not judging. There's the type of person that says
No,
that,
this
and
is
the type
my
of person
plate.
that
Go
says,
get your own.
no, you need to go get your own food.
Right, exactly right.
I'll my in-laws have this joke amongst them that Susie, my mother-in-law, never wants fries because she'll just have some of yours. And no, these are my fries. Get your own fries. Get your own tomahawk steak, Mandis. All right, let's get back to the debate.
All right.
So
Welcome back, Dan.
welcome back, Dan.
I know, right? I've been peed on today and pooped on from the baby, and now this.
I'm glad it was from the baby. I'm just glad it was from the baby because otherwise we'd need to hear the story. I got peed on.
I was showing my daughter how to change a diaper, and if y'all have boys out there, you kind of know what happens sometimes when.
You know what you need? The PPTP. Have you heard of the PPTP?
Oh, boy.
We are on the radio.
It's like a little cone thing
I
that you
know,
put over there
I've seen these. I've seen
to
these.
limit
The
sprayback.
To protect you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that existed until now.
I know what to get you.
Okay.
Back to the topic at hand.
Yes,
right, the
please.
vice presidential debate. So we've been talking a lot about substance and the types of conversations that might be going on the debate stage. I want to ask the panel what you expect in terms of style. It seems to me that there's been a lot of lowering of expectations of how Tim Walz is going to
absolutely.
do. And this is being filtered through media agents that I believe are in cahoots with the Democrats, and I believe that they would not be telling these stories if they weren't trying to lower those expectations. So if you lower the bar far enough, All you have to do is just hop right over it, and you've won.
That's right. I mean, if he comes out unscathed, relatively unscathed, they'll consider it a victory tonight. Is what they're leading us to believe. I don't know. You know, you can rope-a-dope somebody that way. You know, but I really do believe that of the two men on that stage tonight, J.D. Vance is eons better at communicating than is Tim Walz.
I think the person that has lowered the expectations for Tim Walz is Tim Walz.
Yeah.
I mean, he has been one disaster after another, and again, what J.D. Vance has to do is really go in for the political career kill of Tim Walz, because, as I said in the last hour, that will rope in, talking about roping a dope, that'll rope in Kamala Harris and her decision to choose a guy clearly not suited for the vice president's office.
What do you think is the biggest target for J.D. Vance when he's looking at Tim Walz? Is it the stolen valor? Is it China? Is it the IVF stuff? What is the biggest target on Walz's back?
Inability to tell the truth. That's number one, inability to tell the truth. Number two, his past comments on Donald Trump's wall. And when Trump was talking about building a wall, he wanted to get a ladder. He wanted to invest in ladders or whatever that was.
Yeah, buy stock in ladders, right?
Yes, there's the conversation about Tampon Tim and talking about whether or not boys can have periods.
But
I
see,
mean,
this is
it's
the
a
thing.
target-rich environment.
There's so much. What is the biggest one?
I think you let the lies come to you in moments at the debate, right? But you start, I mean, frankly, we haven't brought up the fact that the man could not, as governor of Minnesota, maintain law and order in his own state.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, encouraged disorder at a time when America had great unrest going on in the summer of 2020.
I always look at what's going on in the current news cycle. And this story that came out today about Tim Walz and his repeating claims that he was in China during Tiananmen Square. And now there's and the initial reporting on this was done by Minnesota Public Radio. But what they found is that he could not possibly have been there. And he has repeatedly told this story. Now, that could then be leapfrogged into a discussion of the man's problem with the truth. And so I think I would start out by going there. And if J.D. Vance were something, and that's not the only reason I'm asking that question of you, Tim, because we have these other issues where there's this, your what you have said on the record doesn't seem to match what really happened.
I kind of have to disagree with you on the Tiananmen Square, because I think that is something that's going to be a ding with the older voters, but your youth vote isn't going to know.
Yeah.
They're not going to know what you're talking about. You want to talk about his ties to China? Fine, let's go at it. But people aren't going to understand
you can make the case that you lied about that, and you've lied about this, and you've lied about that. What can we believe?
That's right.
How do we know when you're telling us the truth?
Tim Walz has a problem telling the truth about his own personal past. He lied repeatedly about getting a DUI back in the day. It's not the fact that he got a DUI. Everyone makes mistakes. He made the decision to lie about it repeatedly to win elections. He's lied repeatedly about his whereabouts. Where were you in the summer of 1989, Tim Walz? I mean, these types of things, you repeat to the viewer the fact that Tim Walz has trouble with it.
Bringing guns into combat. That's another one.
Yep, we carry weapons of war. Yeah,
Right.
well, his excuse was, as Scott Jennings said, me no do words good.
I mean, so this guy has obviously not been the performer that Kamala Harris had hoped for him to be, because they've kept him off the stage. And here's what I'm talking about. CNN has an article up from several hours ago, and we look at this stuff so you guys don't have to. Tim Walz is telling people he's just as nervous about facing J.D. Vance as he was the Sunday afternoon in August when he warned Kamala Harris in his running mate interview that he was a bad debater. So he said from the beginning, guys, that he's not good on the debate stage.
Is that playing possum to a certain extent?
I think so. I think he has to be, because CNN's doing the reporting on this. And I have to feel like CNN would be covering some of this up were it not that they wanted to get this out there to lower the bar. So if that's the Tim Walz side of things, are we giving J.D. Vance too much credit for his ability? Now, I would say this. J.D. Vance goes on every show that invites him.
Yep.
And he seems to be incredibly comfortable in these combative interviews, in these combative situations, and is ready to give back everything he gives. It seems to me that sets him up quite well.
Well, it does, and he has been attacked. J.D. Vance has been constantly attacked, and ever since he signed on with Trump, he's been attacked. I don't think Walz is ready for what J.D. Vance is going to throw at him, because he's been in this cocoon of comfort with. Has J.D. Vance given any interviews except for the one with Dana Bash?
You mean Tim Walz?
Yeah, Tim Walz.
Yeah.
Has he done any interviews aside from the one with Dana
local
Bash?
local TV only. But he hasn't been asked any hard questions. J.D. Vance is going to ask him the hardest questions of the campaign tonight.
Well, and he has no response. There's nothing good that's going to come out of any response that J.D. Vance is going to have.
So these are the questions,
Tim
Walz. These are the questions that will be answered 90 minutes during the debate. The moderators of the debate at CBS News claim that they will not be fact-checking in real time. It was a disaster for ABC.
It was, and they lost market share as a result of that. People were so outraged that there was fact-checking of one side but not the other, and there were plenty of things to check Kamala Harris on. They went in, they actually said, well, we didn't like the answers, the way CNN handled it with Donald Trump, and we were going to take him to task. They never even thought, well, we may also need to do the same thing about the other candidate. Isn't that amazing? That it never crossed their mind they would have to do that. They got burned bad by that, and David Muir's audience has shrunk ever since that debate. So I think CBS looked at it and said, we're not going to do that.
I heard it was a step further with ABC, that there were assurances that they weren't going to fact-check Kamala Harris.
Could be.
There was insiders. We all know there were insiders and whistleblowers that said that Harris was provided with the questions ahead of time, and there would be no fact-checking involved of Kamala Harris. So, yeah.
All right, so we're live at Hop Springs in Murfreesboro. Still time to get out here to watch the debate with us. It's happening at 8 o'clock tonight. We'll watch on the big screen. Fox Nation is here as well. They're getting set up and ready to go at about 7:30 tonight, and they'll have an after party where they'll be on air right after the debate, after those proceedings.
Do we have just a moment?
We do.
This is something that's unrelated to any of this, but needs to be done. I want to say happy anniversary to Joel and Rhonda. Joel and Rhonda,
where are you?
Celebrating their 31st anniversary tonight here.
Oh, sweet.
Hey,
nice.
All right.
Joel and Rhonda, where are you? Stand up, say hello. Yay!
Hey, happy anniversary, guys.
A little bee told us that it was whispering in our ear.
That's so sweet. Thank you, Joel and Rhonda, for coming out. Thank all of you for coming out. We'll take a short time out, be back in a moment, continue to break down what we expect out of the debate tonight. It is Matt Murphy, Chris Hand, Brian Wilson, Dan Mandis, SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Back in just a moment.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes. This is Shoot 270, located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down and check us out. I know you're going to love the shooting range, and you're going to love the retail store. See you there.
This is SuperTalk 99.7 WTN, 24 minutes after 7 o'clock, 36 minutes until the start of the one and only vice presidential debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. We are live at Hop Springs in Murfreesboro. Let's hear it, Murfreesboro. A lot of folks, both inside and outside. The big doors are open, and the nice breeze is coming in. And the four amigos, I guess you will, are on stage. Matt Murphy, along with Chris Hand, Brian Wilson, and Dan Mandis. So we're continuing to break down what we expect out of the debate tonight. The thought occurs to me, what group of people, what identity group of people needs to be won over more than any other tonight?
Oh, it's easy.
All right, Chris Hand says this is easy.
It's the Muslim voters, 100%. That's who you have to win over.
This is Chris Hand being snarky and sarcastic on radio, which us old hands know don't work.
What do you mean? You have to win over a group of voters. Harris and Walz have to win over a group of voters.
Mm-hmm.
The Muslim voters.
Mm-hmm.
In Michigan.
Yeah, well, everywhere. The abandoned Biden movement's still going. The abandoned Harris movement is still there. You got to win them over.
Just waiting for the punchline. Waiting for the punchline.
There's no punchline.
Obviously, what Muslim population represents what?
100,000 people in Michigan.
Yeah, 100,000. I think Michigan, even if Michigan's a lost cause, you've lost Pennsylvania and you're fine there. I don't know. I mean, if you're being serious, I don't necessarily think it's the Muslim voters that they need to win over, because any movement on the Muslim vote, you're not necessarily going to have to go after Israel, and in doing that, you're going to lose some of the Jewish population, which is traditionally a Democrat voting bloc, right?
It's a double-edged sword for them.
Yeah, it's a tightrope for them to walk. There's no doubt about that.
Is there a group, is there a category of voter that may be on the fence that one of the candidates on the stage specifically needs to address, or is it more issue-oriented?
Black voters. Kamala Harris has to get black voters.
And she's losing them.
And she's losing
And
them.
Hispanic voters as well.
And, well, yeah, I mean, just look at the headlines from the last couple of days.
Yeah, unbelievable numbers. The number of people, Hispanic voters, who have walked away from the Democrat Party over the last few years. Since the last presidential election, the number has dropped in half of those who are now supporting the Democrats.
Well, when I was gone, we had the headlines. 13,000 murderers roam free thanks to Biden-Harris migrant crime wave. You know, you guys covered it. I was gone.
Mm-hmm.
But how does Tim Walz answer that? Like, what is his response to that? If his response is going to be the tired old, well, Donald Trump killed the bipartisan.
That's going to be his response. And so what's J.D. Vance's answer to that?
Donald Trump was not in office.
No, that's not a good enough answer. Donald Trump controls the Senate. They'll say Donald Trump controls the Senate, Donald Trump controlled the Republicans in the House, and Donald Trump killed a bill that would have shut the border down. That's going to be their position. What's the answer to that?
Then the answer to that is Joe Biden, by executive order, killed all of the border policies that Donald Trump had. That, I mean, remain in Mexico policy. He defanged ICE. He had catch and release with the Border Patrol. All of those things, and it took 3.5 years for them to finally do something, and it was obviously a political move. So Joe Biden and Kamala Harris destroyed all of the border policies that were working with Donald Trump.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
I think one of the things that it ought to be a real goal of J.D. Vance tonight is to bring up issues that a lot of people who pay only a little attention to politics don't know about with regard to the Walz, Harris-Walz ticket and the things that they stand for and the things they believe. I don't think many people, follow this as closely as you and I do. And there's a vast number of people out there who have only a rudimentary understanding of the Harris position on a whole number of things and the Tim Walz position on a whole number of things. I think if he can get that out there and make it stick, some of the wacky things that they believe and some of the wacky things that they want to do, it may be the first time that a lot of people have ever heard it. And I would try to get some of that stuff out there on the record.
So the Walz is going to throw down Agenda 2025.
Oh,
right?
That's going to happen.
But
sure.
See, I think that J.D. Vance needs to turn that around and talk about what is going to be Agenda 2025 under Kamala Harris. And then you just start talking about...
That's a brilliant turn, yeah.
Open borders, tampons in boys' rooms, gender reversals or whatever, gender change for illegal aliens and convicts. I mean, all of those things is...
I've never seen the document, never read the document. But if you want to talk about an agenda, let's talk about the agenda they will have if you are elected vice president and she is elected president.
Yeah, you itemize those things and put it on a meme or whatever, and make it go viral.
See, one of the reasons I bring up identity groups is I think it's a horrible mistake on the part of Democrats to make this about identity voting blocks. I haven't seen where Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have done that. They talk about Americans. They talk about the American people and advancing the cause of America. I mean, the entire slogan from Donald Trump's time when he came down the escalator has been "Make America Great Again." And I believe that they broaden the scope, and so they bring in those groups like black voters, like Hispanic voters, in a way that's more appealing and authentic. I think the Harris-Walz ticket has a tendency to try to break things down into identity groups, and as soon as you press that balloon on one end of it, it pops on the other end, because when you're appealing to certain identity groups, you're upsetting other identity groups, and Chris Hand hit it. I mean, the Muslim population, if you appeal to them, you're going to upset the Jewish population and vice versa.
You got to get J.D. Vance to hammer Tim Walz in those, as Chris Hand likes to say, those viral moments.
Yep.
And I believe that J.D. Vance can do that.
It is 30 minutes after the hour, 30 minutes to go before the vice presidential debate, live from Hop Springs in Murfreesboro. We'll be back in a moment on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes. This is Shoot 270, located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down and check us out. I know you're going to love the shooting range, and you're going to love the retail store. See you there.
SuperTalk 99.7 WTN live from Hop Springs in Murfreesboro. Let's get one more out of there. Come on. There we go. It is brought to you, and I failed to mention this on several occasions, but thank you so much to the Glock Store for being our presenting sponsor of our event tonight. And if you've not signed up for the giveaways, you can win one of these awesome mugs, which are just absolutely incredible. It is an M4 handle on this mug. It is metal grade that is worthy of being a part of a firearm, and you can win that. That is third prize. 3 range sessions. That's second prize in shooting rooms, never lanes. And then first prize, a Glock 43X. Come on now. You can't beat that. You can sign up at the table up front if you are here in Hop Springs. By the way, we would like to say we wished happy anniversary to a lovely couple celebrating, I think, their 31st, if I'm not mistaken. Christine Goodson is celebrating a birthday today. Where's Christine? Christine.
Happy birthday, Christine, wherever you are.
Wherever you are, Christine. And if y'all want to sing Christine happy birthday, that is up to you guys out there in the audience, because we're going to move on from there. Oh, look, they're doing it. Isn't that nice? They're singing them happy birthday.
You're
Dan,
the way for Christine.
Dan, you want to join in on the happy birthday?
It's all good.
No? I mean, you got to send them in a week. You've seen the birth of your grandchild.
Moving right along.
Okay. Moving. I love Dan's moving right alongs. It's my favorite. It's my favorite Dan Mandis. Speaking of moving right along, before we delve back and kind of circle back and get final thoughts on all of the debate that's happening tonight, we would like to make a special announcement about where we're going to be on election night. And you guys need to listen up because we are excited about our election night coverage. You can join me, Chris Hand, Dan Mandis, and Brian Wilson for our live coverage of the 2024 presidential election presented by U.S. Pest inside the James E. Ward Agricultural and Community Center.
That's a big building. A lot of people to fill that one
Wilson County Fairgrounds in Lebanon. If y'all know, that's called the Tennessee Room. It's got the big map of the state of Tennessee on the floor with all of the counties. So you better get there early to pick your county early. It's happening Tuesday, November 5th. We're broadcasting live. We start at 3 with the drive, and then we jump into election night coverage with all of the gang starting at 6 o'clock.
That is a massive room.
That is a big room. Everybody going to be there? Everybody? Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Just say yes, folks.
It's just one guy. Yes. One guy said yes. They're all ready for the debate tonight. But it's the election party to be at. It is free to attend for all ages. Food and beverage available for purchase. Join us in Lebanon. Election night in the good old U.S. of A. in the good old state of Tennessee. Special thanks to Busy Bee, HVAC, and Glock Store. Details at 997WTN.com. So there you go. So J.D. Vance was very much a never-Trumper in 2016. Now, all 4 of us on this stage have spoken about this on our respective shows. All 4 of us have talked to the audience about it. I feel like maybe this will be introduced tonight to an audience that has not heard this. What does J.D. Vance say, and how does he say it in response to what I am certain to be brought up tonight that, oh, you said this. You called Donald Trump a Nazi. You said he was everything but Adolf Hitler. What does he say?
So I think what he does is he says, yeah, there are a lot of people that didn't vote for Trump in 2016 and then learned the error of their ways, much like myself. However, I don't know many people that voted for Trump and are now voting for Kamala Harris. In fact, the Kamala Harris campaign got busted paying a couple of people to lie about just that. How are you guys spending your campaign funds, Tim?
That's a good answer. Dan, what do you think?
I think it's an opportunity. I think J.D. Vance turns it into an opportunity by looking at the record of Donald Trump and then the record of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, and then he can throw down the line, you know, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Of course, 4 years ago, dealing with COVID and all that, but bottom line is, were you more prosperous during Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
Yeah,
it's an opportunity.
I think that Tim Walz was an unremarkable politician. He was an unremarkable congressman, an unremarkable governor, and I think that really the time would be better spent trying to just flesh out for people who might not otherwise be exposed to it just some of the wacky stuff that Kamala Harris and her administration will bring to this country, and so. I just don't know that there's any real percentage in destroying Tim Walz. I mean, it will be pretty easy to do, by my estimation, because I think that J.D. Vance is entirely capable of just annihilating the guy. But the bigger fish to fry is actually the person who's at the top of the ticket. And so, for my money, if I were them, I would be trying to talk about the policies of the Harris-Walz administration and what it would bring to this country, and then point out that, you know, when he says, well, we're going to do this on day one and we're going to do that, point out which is exactly the right thing to do. Why hasn't she already done it?
Yep.
Well, and you could ask the question. I mean, I don't expect that the moderators will go anywhere near the question, but you could ask the question if you're J.D. Vance. Were you happy as the governor of Minnesota when Kamala Harris led the fight to let these criminals out of jail that were put in jail in your state for burning Minneapolis to the ground? Were you happy that she did that she encouraged people to give to this fund that would let these individuals out of jail? Or did that concern you as the governor of a state that saw so many of your cities burning to the ground?
Great point.
You know?
Absolutely great point.
So we can't wait almost 20 minutes, 19 minutes until it's time for the debate. Other issues coming up, and the crime is an issue that we've seen many media organizations try to kind of carry the water for Kamala Harris, carry the water for Joe Biden and their administration, in as much as we feel as if crime is ticking up. We see it ticking up in our cities. We see it in the city of Nashville. We see it in other major metropolitan areas. Yet we're told by Harris and Biden, that's just a lie. Don't believe your eyeballs, because crime is down, we're told. Anybody?
You can just hit them right back on the border. You can bring that right back to the border. You let in 13,000 known guys convicted of homicide.
Well, the other thing that I would say is, number one, that's what Kamala Harris said during the debate with Donald Trump. And then, the next day or the next couple of days, they came out and said, actually, no, Donald Trump is right. The crime statistics actually show that crime is going up. That's number one. Number two, this might get a little weedy for some folks, but let's also not forget that the Biden administration changed the way in which crime stats are reported. And so that made it look like the crime was down, when in reality, a lot of the blue cities that are riddled with crime just gave up because they couldn't deal with the albatross of trying to report the stats.
I mean, Memphis being the obvious
Memphis
example.
is one. Memphis, Washington, D.C., a lot of these Democrat-run cities.
So we believe, are we all in concert that we believe that foreign policy will take center stage early on in the debate? I think we've established that.
The news of the day often drives what an anchor is thinking about. So, yeah, it wouldn't be surprising to talk about what happened in the Middle East today. I think that would be, initially I thought they wouldn't do that. But you know what? You can't walk away from what has happened in the news of the day. There would be two then stories that I think that they'll be hard-pressed to walk away from. Number one is the situation with Iran firing 200 ballistic missiles at Israel today. The other part of it would be, I think, the question about the Biden administration's lackadaisical response to the hurricanes. I think that would be a big story as well.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, how much, Brian, do you think they should try to tie the ignored sanctions, the lowered sanctions, the Biden administration allowing Iran to sell all that oil? Is that too weedy for this?
It's in the weeds. And here's the thing, anytime you have one candidate saying another thing and the other guy saying that's just simply not true, what have you accomplished?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you leave it to the individual viewer to fact check for themselves, right?
Yeah, everybody's going to believe what they want to believe out of that.
I think it's a lot simpler to say the trajectory that Harris has been on with Biden is leading us towards war. The trajectory that Trump had us on is leading us towards peace.
Yeah.
That's just simplified as best you can. Do you want your kids going overseas to fight in World War III, or do you want them at home where it's safe?
Well, and I think you do the same thing on the southern border issue, because Biden-Harris, or Harris-Biden, or Harris-Walls, whatever it is, they are attempting to pivot on the illegal immigration issue on the backs of this Republican bill that most of us have never read, that most of us don't know the meat and potatoes of, but they're suggesting, well, Donald Trump killed this bill so he could campaign on it. I think you pull that back in an overview and you say, look, do you believe, just listen to your gut. Do you honestly believe that the Biden-Harris administration has been harder on the southern border than the Trump administration was? Just ask yourself that question, and if you come away with an emphatic, of course not, then you know what your answer is.
Well, I think you bring up the fact that the border bill was also tied to $60 billion for Ukraine. That all they want to do is give Ukraine money. You're letting American citizens drown in North Carolina while you're sending $2.5 billion more to Ukraine. It's always America last with the left, and you bring it right back to that.
Now, already a report has come out, and I'm just looking at it from the Fox News website that says that the latest false walls claim that's being debunked about China, and they're putting this in a mosaic of a pattern of behavior. And I agree with you, Brian. You said last hour that this is just a pattern of lies. It's a pattern of behavior. And if you're J.D. Vance, if you're ready for this, you rattle them off in the fashion that Chris Hand did.
Bam. And when can will you tell us how we'll know when you're telling us the truth?
It's a great line.
It's a great line. And and there's plenty of stuff to point out where what he has said on the record has turned out to be probably untrue. So tick 1, 2, 3.
Can I ask, because I've been a little bit out of the news cycle. So does Tim Walz, does he have an answer to the fact that he's now been caught lying about this? Like, what is his answer to this? Because that's got to be one of the first questions that comes up is, you said 30,
if you can count on
15.
the anchors to ask it.
Well, the brilliant thing about the issue with China, and I understand the specifics of Tiananmen Square might be lost on younger viewers, but the brilliance of bringing up the topic is there's no good way to answer it. You either say, "Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't 30, it was 15," and then if you're J.D. Vance, you pounce on, why in the world were you in China 15 separate occasions? What do you love about the communist Chinese that led you back to that country on so many different occasions? Heck, you took your honeymoon in China, for goodness sake.
Yep.
Why in the world would you do that? Or you say, oh, it was just a lack of memory, and you pounce on, you know what, that seems to happen to you a lot. Tim Walz, you seem to lose your memory a lot. You did the same thing with your DUI. You did the same thing trying to,
You did the same thing with IVF.
You did the same thing with your IVF. You seem to lose your memory only when it seems to benefit you politically.
Right.
And only when caught does your memory catch up with you. My grandpa always said that you don't have to remember the truth. You have to remember a lie. The truth just comes to you naturally, or you say, I don't remember, and you bring that up repeatedly. You cannot trust Walz, and you can't trust the decision maker of Kamala Harris that she picked this guy.
And the thing I love about J.D. Vance is he can do it. He can very concisely and precisely just damage Tim Walz to the point where nobody's going to believe anything.
He has that ability to rapidly go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and and then nail it at the end. He's going to.
I can't wait to see this.
I can't wait to see him eviscerate.
For as
Tim
much
Walz.
love, and I might take a beating with the audience by saying this, for as much love as I have for Donald Trump, and I do have a tremendous amount of love, and I love his authenticity when he gets on a stage, it's pretty obvious that Donald Trump does not put in the work to prepare for a debate. He just comes at it naturally, and I think that's good in a lot of ways, and in some ways it's not so good because you don't have the opportunities to zing your opponent. I don't believe that J.D. Vance is going to be that way. J.D. Vance has prepared for this by going on the Dana Bash show, by going and sitting down with Jake Tapper and some of these other enemy organizations.
I also think don't undersell J.D. Vance's ability to be funny and create a laughing out loud moment where we're all just chuckling at Tim Walz and
if
his
you
stupidity.
get that moment, that can have more impact. Remember the great Ronald Reagan line about his age, and that the moment that Mondale laughed was the moment that Mondale lost the election.
Amen. So that brings up the question, what advice would you give to J.D. Vance? We're going to do this because Donald Trump was asked this question. Former President Donald Trump was asked earlier tonight what his advice for J.D. Vance was ahead of the debate against Democrat vice presidential candidate Tim Walz. We'll tell you what that answer is, and we'll get the answer from the panel as to what your advice would be for J.D. Vance as we lead up to the big debate. We're at Hot Springs in Murfreesboro with SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Back in a moment.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes. This is Shoot 270, located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down and check us out. I know you're going to love the shooting range, and you're going to love the retail store. See you there.
SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Here's what I need out of you guys at Hop Springs in Murfreesboro. I need the loudest cheer you've given. I need louder than that. Come on, who's supporting J.D. Vance tonight? Who supports Donald Trump tonight? That's exactly right. Murfreesboro, Tennessee. There you go. All right, sorry, I got a little excited.
I feel like we've officially reached big hype.
Come on. I think we're
felt
here.
Big hype, actually.
It did.
I think we're here in the moments before the big vice presidential debate. Anticipation is very, very high. Donald Trump was asked earlier tonight what his advice would be to J.D. Vance, his hand-selected running mate for the 2024 cycle. Before I tell you what his answer was, Chris Hand, what would your advice be to J.D. Vance?
My advice would be come hungry because you're about to eat. And I would say, I'd say, get out there and have fun, kid. Don't worry about too much. Just get out there and have fun.
Yeah, I think along the same lines. If you're going to disagree, do it in a not a disagreeable way. Via the happy warrior, and I think that goes a lot further.
Dan Mandis, feel free to take your time with this answer. What would your advice be to J.D. Vance?
Vance needs to be very artful. He needs to be able to take down Tim Walz in a way where, yes, he sounds agreeable, but he does create those viral moments where it goes, crazy on the socials, and that way it exposes Tim Walz as the buffoon that he clearly is. And then he's got to tie it to Kamala Harris's decision-making.
Well, and I would also add a point to that, that if you are J.D. Vance, you need to tie Tim Walz down on issues. Tie the Harris-Walz team down on issues because they're slippery on immigration. They're slippery on foreign policy. Where are you on the Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran conflict? Where are you on the economy? Is it Bidenomics good or is it economy bad?
And how do you tie Kamala Harris of old to the Kamala Harris of new, where, all of her policies have changed over the past 4 or 5 years.
That's right.
So, will the real Kamala Harris please tell us who she is?
Well, that would be a great question. We were talking on air and off about J.D. Vance wrapping his answers around with questions that won't be asked by the moderators, and that would be a great, hey, you probably know her better than anybody. You've talked to her more than anybody. Can you let the American people know where she is on these issues? Because we can't seem to figure it out and can't get an interview with her to get an answer.
What a great tactic that would be. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just remembered another lie from Tim Walz that needs to be brought up. The white guy tacos when he won a chili dish in Minnesota. I feel like we need to bring up the white guy tacos.
Well, I'll tell you this. Every one of you answered in the same fashion that Donald Trump did, and that was his advice to J.D. Vance was, he said, J.D.'s amazing. He's smart. One of the best decisions I made. My advice to him is simple. Have fun. You'll do great. And I think that will come across to the American people as we get ready for the big vice presidential debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz happening all over America and all over the world. Truly, everybody's watching this thing because it will be the last opportunity that many of us believe we'll have to see the two campaigns on stage side by side, mano a mano. For Brian Wilson, for Chris Hand, for Dan Mandis, it's Matt Murphy, and we're wrapping it up at Hop Springs. One more opportunity, Hop Springs, to say thank you to you, the folks who were gracious enough to come out to be with us. There's still a little bit of time, so come on out and get out here as we make our way toward the presidential debate happening tonight. You can listen live if you're not able to get here on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Any final thoughts, men?
Go JD.
Go JD. Brian Wilson?
Just try to do whatever you can to try to pin down the positions of the administration that most people who don't pay a lot of attention to these kind of things, they're going to be watching tonight, and this is an opportunity to inform them about things they haven't heard in other places.
Chris Hand?
I'm just ready for J.D. Vance to finally prove us right, mop the floor with Tim Walz. Let's get this thing going.
Let's make it happen. All right, we're ready to go, and we would love to get your reaction to everything happening tomorrow on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN, starting with Dan Mandis, Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, and then The Drive with Brian Wilson. For those three, it's Matt Murphy saying have a wonderful night. Enjoy the debate. We'll talk to you tomorrow, friends.